month we've been focusing on gratitude and the mindset of being grateful and thankful. And so this week, I really wanted to look at um, what is it like when we are not grateful? What's the other side of that, of not showing gratitude? And I think I mentioned that last week, that the opposite of gratitude is ingratitude. And so I just wanted to learn more about that and and how I can act. You know, the gratitude that bubbles up in us should create some type of action, and or a response, some type of a response to that feeling of thanksgiving and gratefulness that bubbles up in our heart. And so um, I've read a blog or an article in a magazine, and I've also watched a sermon or a lesson by Andy Stanley, and I'm going to share with you what I've learned, and it's just kind of motivated me to show my gratitude more often, like every day, and not to just think it in my mind, but to follow through with expressing my gratitude. And so we're going to learn about being the one, and what a gratitude loop is, and how we can be the one that closes a gratitude loop. So in Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19, we have the story of the 10 lepers that Jesus healed. So the scripture says, on the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. And according to Andy Stanley, he was talking about Samaria and Galilee. This land between these two cities was very remote and secluded. And it makes sense, because when lepers were, when it was diagnosed or discovered, or when they learned that they had this disease, the law was that they had to be an outcast. They had to be outside the city. They had to keep their face covered when people approached. They had to call out and make people aware that they were a leper. It was not just a disease of physical pain and suffering, but it was also isolation and being separated from your family and your friends and your employment of whatever trade they might have had. And so they would congregate outside of these cities in small camps or clusters, where they could be together, and they could pool their resources and work together to find food. And so that was a new thought for me as I'm imagining Jesus. How did he come in contact with 10 lepers? Well, he probably was close to one of these little communities where they were living together. And 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priest. Now, when he said that, they weren't instantly healed. They didn't look down and see that they were healed. One of the things that he pointed out was that this was telling them to go. It was they were going to have to follow through in faith to go and actually do this, because that was the only way to be declared healed. Was a priest declared you healed and then allowed you to go back to your family and your friends and your community. And so it was a great act of faith for these lepers to go to the priest in the first place. And as they went, they were made clean. So as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. So he just laid right out on the ground and thanked him with a loud voice. And he was not ashamed. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus said, Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? So the Samaritan, of all people, was the one that recognized his need to thank Jesus for what he had done. Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." And so out of 10 people, one came back. They all received the same gift of healing. And, they all demonstrated faith because it says they were healed. But only one was grateful enough to come back and to take time from the celebrating or the going back, returning back to their family or, their friends, their community. Only one. And so I'm challenged to be that one, to always be thankful and to express gratitude. I'm sure all 10 of them were thankful. They were all excited. They were all, great gratitude was bubbling up in their heart that they had been healed from this horrible disease, but only one thanked him. And so gratitude is an emotional thing we learned last week that just bubbles up from a well of grace. And the root word of the word gratitude is grace. And that was Bunny's husband, Larry O'Brien's definition. And the dictionary.com says the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for, and to return kindness. So there's an action that comes as a result of gratitude. And synonyms that we could put on that, that can't remember the name of it right now, but where we can rank words based on their meaning. We could put these different synonyms on that ranking. Words like appreciation, grateful, thankful, thanks. And, sometimes I think we may appreciate things, but we aren't truly grateful for it until it stirs an action within us. And so the quality of being grateful or thankful, readiness to show appreciation for and return kindness. I think we have to remember that showing appreciation and returning kindness. But if we don't act upon our gratitude, what happens? It's ingratitude. And ingratitude is a lack of proper appreciation or thanks for something, such as a kind or helpful act. And I've got my words covered up, but that should be a lack of gratitude. So ingratitude is a lack of gratitude. And so ingratitude produces pride, while gratitude produces humility. And I think to be grateful and to express that we're grateful, it takes humility, because we're recognizing the fact that whatever we received or whatever someone helped us accomplish was not done on our own. We had to have someone else's help. And so ingratitude is strictly, built on pride. We see that we worked hard for whatever we have. It's a result of what we deserved or what we were able to attain through hard work. And I don't think I've ever thought about it that way before, that ingratitude is so closely related to pride, while gratitude is related to humility. And this is just some excerpts from this article. And if you'll notice, the word article is in blue. That means I've hyperlinked the article there if you want to read it. I'm not familiar with William Barclay, but, he may be well known. But I thought this article was worthwhile. And part of it says, imagine the child of wealthy parents who's received an expensive gift, attended the best schools, and lived in comfort and security, telling his parents, "You never gave me enough." We would call that child spoiled and ingrate. Yet every gift that God gives to his own children is infinitely better, more lavish, perfectly suited for every circumstance, always for our good, and always undeserved. That made me think of the grace we talked about last week. What spoiled children we are if we fail to give him thanks continually. But understand this, that in the last days, people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy. That's from 2 Timothy. Paul's speaking here in 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 2. It is fitting that lovers of self, proud, arrogant, and ungrateful are grouped together. The thankless person believes he is the center of the world. He has earned everything he has, and for him, nothing is a gift. Here, then, we see the ultimate original sin rear its ugly head, the sin of pride. Ungratefulness and pride go hand in hand. Where one goes, the other walks beside it. The prideful heart is the thankless heart and is at enmity with God. Andy Stanley's sermon is also hyperlinked here if you would like to listen. It's more of a lesson than a sermon. It could have been recorded during COVID when he wasn't able to meet in person. But one of the things he points out is that withholding gratitude creates a gap in any relationship. So let's think of the story we just read about the lepers. We have a giver. Jesus is the giver. He was the one who was giving healing. And we had the recipients, which were the lepers. And we could fill in those blanks with any person who is a giver and then who the recipient might be. So it could be a parent and a child, or any situation you want to fill in. But when the recipient withholds gratitude, then there is this gap. And the giver wonders, did they appreciate the gift? Were they happy? Was it something they really liked? Was it useful to them? Did they appreciate the time and effort I put forth? I think of someone who mentors you, or who, as a teacher, I had many mentors. Was I grateful? Did they know that I was grateful? So when we fail to express our gratitude, it creates this gap. And so why is it important to express our gratitude frequently? Well, unexpressed gratitude is experienced as ingratitude. Just like I said, the recipient may have appreciated it, but we don't know if they don't express. And so these were some of the points that he made. Ingratitude is an inflated view of ourselves. Here again, we think we earned it. We think we deserved it. We're just more focused on us than we are on the person giving whatever they gave. Arrogance and ingratitude go together. Gratitude can make us feel weak, like we needed help. So, by expressing our gratitude, we can be showing our weakness, our vulnerability, that we needed someone else. And, that is totally the opposite of pride, right? So humility is needed to be grateful. And gratitude shows we have life in the proper perspective and recognize the role others have played in our lives. Okay, and then he goes on to talk about the expression of gratitude is more important than the emotion of gratitude. Just because I feel it bubble up, and I feel it, I feel that gratitude and that thankfulness in my heart, but I fail to express it. That is the same as ingratitude, because we are not expressing it. And the emotion will not close that gap. However, when the recipient expresses gratitude to the giver, it closes that loop. So it made me think, how can we express gratitude to those in our family and within our circle of influence? I feel like our family, that's probably the place where we fail to express our gratitude, because we're with these people all the time. And when you're with someone so often, you can start to take them for granted, and it's easy to just be in the motions. He even talked about the fact that sometimes a wife will brag on her husband in his presence to someone else. Like they may brag on their husband to their friend, telling their friend about how much they appreciate him or something that he did, and that is not as meaningful as telling him just one-on-one. And so I'm definitely guilty of that. And what does expressing gratitude do? It closes that gap and creates the gratitude loop. So that's what he refers to as a gratitude loop. When a giver, such as Jesus, gives a gift, or it could be time, it could be kind words, it could be many different things, but the giver gives something. And in our situation and story of the Jesus healing the lepers, Jesus gave healing and hope to these 10 recipients, these lepers who could do nothing for themselves. And when one came back and closed that gratitude loop, how did that make Jesus feel? He recognized the fact that only one came back. He recognized the fact that it was the Samaritan that recognized his need to express gratitude. And you think of the other 9. And I don't want to be one of those other 9. So these are just some statements that I wrote for myself, and you may think of your own statements. But may I always have an attitude of gratitude, to be quick to show gratitude verbally and through written notes, to be humble enough to admit my need for others, to be more appreciative than critical, and to recognize the feeling of gratitude bubbling up in my heart and quickly express it to God or to people. So gratitude is not expressing gratitude. I've got this covered up. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. So that is just another little phrase that made me remember that just because I think it or I feel it, not expressing it is withholding a gift that God will use to encourage someone else. And then Psalm 107:21, let them give gifts to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. So I want to be quick to not just express my gratitude to other people, but to God. When you see a beautiful sunset, you see something in nature that reminds you of his love to create such a beautiful earth for us to live in. So many different things that we can think of every day, that we need to just stop and thank him and show our gratitude. And so these are some action ideas. I told you last week, if you're at Hobby Lobby and you find these little leaves, they'll be on sale, and grab a pack. Last year, I bought these and I wrote each person's name on them, and I wrote a little note of gratitude for each person. Now, this was like a day or two before my brother Wesley's funeral, and I guess I realized that I needed to do better in letting people know what they mean to me. And so I just had those sitting all around the house, and they would find theirs, and everyone seemed to really appreciate them. So that's one idea. But maybe you have a large group coming to your home and you don't necessarily have time to sit and write a personal note to each person. You could write the names. I'm thankful for blank, and you could write all of the names of everyone who will be at your house, put them in a basket, and then challenge each person to select one name to write a note to. And then you would have the whole group getting involved in writing notes of gratitude and expressing why they're thankful for each other. I know these are I know they can be meaningful, because just this week I ran across Ernie's that he kept, and he doesn't keep much of anything. He's quick to throw away things. So I think that would be more meaningful than you might realize. I think you can mail a note of gratitude. It doesn't have to be these. It can be any kind of little card, a thank you note, and then just send those out to people, maybe from your past, who have had an impact on you, and you're thinking, have I ever really expressed to them how important they were at that time in my life, or how often I think of them now that I'm grown? And I think that would be a great thing to do if you still have contact with those people in your life. And then just be quick to tell people verbally why you're grateful for them, and always be specific, because just saying I'm thankful for you does not mean as much as I'm thankful for you because, and then you tell them something they did or a trait that they have that you're thankful for. And so my journaling ideas are pretty simple. I would like for you to try to find an envelope that has an address where someone has mailed you a card to use as a pocket, but you don't have to. You can use any paper that you've got or any envelope that will signify mail, that people are communicating with you. And here on the blue, that is a printable that I created in our Google Docs, that if you click on that, you can print off the verses about the story of the leper. And there's also a couple little verses about praise and thanksgiving that you could cut out. I didn't print them because my printer is not communicating with my computer right now because it's so full and I need a new computer. But I do plan to print those out and add them this week. I also want you to make a mini book, a little book where you can write down, just use it however you want. I'm probably going to use mine to write down things I'm thankful for about my family that I want to be mindful to express more often, especially to my daughters-in-law. I want them to know that I think they're the perfect match for each of my sons. I think one of them is so tender-hearted, and she has such just a tender heart. She's always telling me about things that make her heart hurt at work, and she's a nurse. And the other one, she's so adventurous, and she's taking on lots of roles around their farm and learning to, take care of goats and do things that are definitely outside of her comfort zone. But she's very adventurous, and I admire that about her. And I want to be, I want them to hear those kinds of things from me more than, things they might perceive as criticisms. So that I'll show you my journal of what I've gotten started. So here you can see, it's funny that just today I got a card from the Glitter Queen, Joy Fields. She calls herself the Glitter Queen because she sprinkles glitter inside the envelope. And just let me tell you, my boys do not like it. My son Kobe opened up a card from his nanny one day and glitter flew all over his truck. He still finds glitter in his truck and he does not like it. So she writes a little note, Glitter Queen, and that's a little bit of a warning, open it outside. And none of us know why she enjoys that so much, but she really gets a kick out of it. And so she sends Ernie and me notes, and we just got them today, even though she wrote them on November 10th. Just telling us why she's grateful for us. And this one to Ernie, I don't think he would mind me sharing. Thank you for being a top #1 son-in-law, always doing for others. I'll always think of you when I get in the Volvo because I really appreciate you taking the time and effort of attaching the armrest. You are a man of many talents and abilities, and that's why I hope you get my name for Christmas because he makes her things that are personal. But we were going to the Women of Joy conference, and we left her car here, and it's 30 years old, so it's it's seen better days. And he got in it to move it and realized her door handle had fallen off on the inside of the car, and he fixed it for her, and it was a surprise when she came back. So that's what she's referring to. But I used the envelope to create a pocket. All I did was, cut off the extra, glue down the flap, and put glue on the 3 sides. And now I have a good little pocket to put that note. And so I hope that each of you will receive a note of gratitude from someone. It might be in a birthday card. It might be, specifically for Thanksgiving. But I want you to put it in your journal here. And it might take a week or two for you to receive one. But you will eventually, and you can stick it in there. I plan to put my scripture reference right here. And I'm going to put words, either write it out or use stickers that's going to say be the one. And I want one to be O-N-E in large letters. And then over here, I found an envelope where Becky had mailed something. And that's very unusual because she normally, I see her at church every week. So we don't mail things that much. But she had sent me a card in the mail. And I did the same thing with that one. And I'm going to create these little mini books. And so all a book is a piece of stiffer paper that's going to be the outside cover. And I tried to use paper that reminded me of bubbles. Here again, keeping with the bubble theme, gratitude just bubbling up. And I took random pieces of little paper, just cut off pieces. It doesn't have to be the same size, shape, color. You can have tall pieces, short pieces. I kind of alternated it. Tall, small, bigger, smaller, bigger, a lot taller for the middle. And then that's going to go inside. For this one, I did the same thing. I just used different sizes of paper. You can see there. And in the middle, I tied a string, stacked them all up, tied a string around it. And I can trim that off. I can tie a bow. I can tie beads on it, put a little charm on it, whatever. And I put a sticker on the front, my life, my love, my family, my world. And this is where I'm going to record some of the things that I'm thankful for about my family that I want to be more mindful to express. And this one, I wanted to show you another way of binding these little journals. So line all your papers up in the middle the way you want them to be. This is my Grandma Mildred's ice pick. It's one of my most prized possessions because I use it when I'm binding journals. Instead of an awl, I have this, and it's great because it's got that long piece of metal, and I don't have to worry about it. If an awl is shorter and it's harder to get down in there. So you're just going to poke 2 holes, like I did. Just kind of space it out evenly. And then you're going to take your string, yarn, thread, whatever you have. And I typically use a needle and just thread it like sewing. But I realize some of you don't have one. So whatever pokey tool you have to poke holes, you can use that to push your string through. And you can either tie it in the middle or you can tie it on the outside. I think I'll tie this one on the inside since I have the other one on the outside. If you wanted to put a bead on the outside, and I know beads would add bulk to your journal, so you may not want to do that. But you can string a bead on here, and then when you pull that together, you can have little beads on the outside of your journal. And you can make these larger, like a book, a larger journal book. So here, I'm just going to tie a knot. Snip them off, or you can tie a bow, whatever you prefer. And here's 2 different ways of binding a little journal. I'll put a sticker of some sort here, and then those will go in my little pocket from Becky. And in one, I'm going to write about family, and one I'm going to write about either friends or just things that to God I'm thankful for. The things He does for me, the answered prayers. That's just going to be what goes in that journal. And then up here, I created using some of these little things that I've gotten at the Dollar Tree. Some of those little starbursts. You could also use little cards. It could be something you cut out, a circle you cut out, anything. But I wanted to create that gratitude loop. And so I created giver. And my example is Jesus healed the 10 lepers. And the recipient or recipients, and that was the leper or the lepers who were healed. I create an arrow that shows the gap between a giver and a recipient if gratitude is never shown. We have this gap of ingratitude. whether it is perceived or, you know, ingratitude is expressed or unexpressed, it's still ingratitude if we have not, um, expressed it to the person who was the giver. And then one leper returned. He closed the gratitude gap or loop. It should be gratitude loop. And so the one came back and closed the gratitude loop. And so I'm going to glue this on here, and it's going to be my reminder that people can't read my mind. And I know how I feel when I've done something for someone and then I never hear a thank you, or I never hear that they liked it, or, I'm left to wonder, did they receive it? Did they like it? Was that helpful? So I want to do a better job at being the one. And these are the little cards I forgot to show you. I'm thankful for, and then they just are blank inside. You can even make these, just fold paper, lay the card on the fold and trace around the leaf, and then you've got a little card that you can make. I don't know that anybody has time for that, but it's an idea if you have more time than you do at home with the supplies than you have going out shopping.